Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here and joining us on your Thursday afternoon for the virtual open house with the PA Farm to School Network. We are going to get started in just a minute, but if everybody can introduce themselves in the chat, we would love to hear who you are, where you're coming from, whether it's your job or where you live. It's great to see geographically where people are tuning in from, especially from Pennsylvania. So I know we've got folks from all across the state. And if you'd like to share a fall food or activity that you're looking forward to enjoying or already enjoying, that would be awesome too. So go ahead and pop that in the chat while we wait for some folks to join, and then I'll go ahead and review what we're going to cover in the next hour and a half. Great. It's great to see some of those intros. I'm going to take care of a little bit of housekeeping as well, so that everybody knows. We are recording this meeting so that folks who are unable to join us today live can still see the content and hear about these amazing examples of farm to school activities happening from our panelists, and also get all of the resources and tips for Farm to School Month. So thank you all in advance for respecting the presenters by keeping yourselves on mute for the first part of the open house. And then during the Q&A section, I definitely recommend participating. You can raise your hand if you've got a question and come off mute and share it. Or if you want to pop a question into the chat, we will be moderating the chat as well. So definitely feel free to weigh in at that point. And throughout the entire open house, at any point, if you've got thoughts or questions that come up, again, feel free to put them in the chat so we can address them as we go or whenever it makes sense. And thanks again for everybody introducing themselves in the chat. Keep those coming. But I'm going to go ahead and review the agenda briefly and then get started also with the first section. So we can go to the next slide, Lauren. All right. So I'm going to start with a brief overview of the Farm to School Network. For many of you, I'm sure this will be a little bit of a refresher of information, but for anybody who's new, I just want to make sure you understand who the Farm to School Network is and what we're working to do here in Pennsylvania. And then our featured topic for this open house this quarter is Farm to School Month, which is coming up in October. And we're going to hear all about that from our special guest, Sunny Baker from the National Farm to School Network. And then we will hear from some of our excellent practitioners across the state on a panel who will share for about 5 minutes each some of the great work that they're doing. And then there'll be a little bit of time for questions and answers, as I mentioned. And then we'll wrap up at the top of this hour, the full hour, so around 2:30, with some announcements and upcoming opportunities for you to continue getting engaged. And at that point, then we'll spend the last 30 minutes in some small group sessions to give everybody a chance to get to know each other, share what you are doing, ask any other questions you might have, and just generally network and discuss anything that's related to farm to school. So that's the flow of what we're going to cover. So I'm going to jump right in and just share a little bit of information about the network. So we envision with the PA Farm to School Network a world where every child in Pennsylvania is meaningfully connected to and nourished by a thriving and resilient community food system. And we work toward that vision by leveraging all of the collective expertise and resources that we have in our state to strengthen farm to school and farm to early care and education initiatives. And these initiatives help to create learning opportunities for kids, increase market opportunities for PA producers and farmers, and connect a variety of stakeholders, including many of you and community members around food. So that's a little bit about our vision and mission. I also want to share a little bit about what farm to school is. We get this question pretty often, or even a reflection from some of our new members who join our spaces and say, I've been doing farm to school, but never knew that that is what it was called, or that there was necessarily a name or a movement or this entire support system to help me do even more of this type of work. So there's 3 core components, as you can see here. There's school gardens, which can, as we'll see in some of the examples later in stories, in the success stories, be used as edible experiences for locally grown on-site food, but obviously as well as experiential and educational experiences for kids to just see how food grows. And that's very much tied to the other component of nutrition and food education, which can take many shapes and forms. Again, we'll hear more about that in our stories, as well as fresh food procurement, both purchasing and selling and serving food in school settings. And then one other framework on the next slide that I'd like to touch on is this 3 C's framework, which we like to borrow from Vermont Feed, who have adapted this as a meaningful way to think about not only what is farm to school, but where does farm to school happen? So the classroom, the cafeteria, and the community, these 3 spaces, especially when integrated with your farm to school activities and programs, really are best for sustaining farm to school activities and making a meaningful impact in kids' experiences. So lastly, I just want to touch briefly on the Pennsylvania Farm to School Network structure. So you can see this little graphic here. We are made up of members. That's basically anybody who's on our email list and our membership list, who receives our monthly harvest e-newsletters, but also involves folks who take on more of an active role by joining working groups or participating in our open houses, like you'll see today with some of our volunteer facilitators. And then it's also helped to be steered by a leadership team, which is made up of a variety of different agencies, including the Department of Ed, Agriculture, and Health, and a set of other agencies like food policy councils and PASA Sustainable Farming and PA Friends of Ag. So we bring together a lot of different perspectives that also can tap into these various sectors within our state, so that we can best understand what people are looking for when it comes to implementing farm to school initiatives, and additional supports and professional development opportunities they might need. And then all of this effort is coordinated by a coordinating agency, which is the Food Trust. And that's my role. And I'm Sam Gibb, because I forgot to introduce myself earlier. So here we are. Lastly, on our structure is that we, or I'll just jump right into what we do. We are working to support farm to school implementation with a variety of activities, as you can see, Farm to School Month being one. Also, policy advocacy is a big priority of ours. And the main initiative we're focused on right now is working to pass a statewide policy in some aspect around local food purchasing incentives, which will help schools to actually more easily purchase local food by having a pool of money to do so, which in turn will obviously be very beneficial for farmers and producers in our state as well. And then we also work to just build out this movement and this network of stakeholders by providing spaces like this, the open house, but also promoting and generating success stories to help compel and inspire others. As well as we're working on developing an ambassador program and regional hub structure to best support local community work across Pennsylvania. So that was a lot of information. If you're curious to know more about the network, I will leave you with some tips on how to do that at the end of our open house before we jump into small groups. But for now, I would love to just pass over the mic to my friend and colleague, Sunny Baker, who I recently had the opportunity to get to know at a conference in Vermont. I'm so excited that she's joined us so that she can share a little bit about how she got into this space and also talk to us about National Farm to School Month. So Sunny, please go ahead and take it away.
Hey y'all, so I'm Sunny. Oh, there I am. You can move to the next slide. Sunny Baker. I use she, her pronouns. I am the Senior Director of Programs and Policy at the National Farm to School Network. And I am based in the lands of the Osage and the Quapaw, now known as Little Rock, Arkansas. Even though I grew up in St. Louis, I am a deep South girl by heart. I moved to Mississippi in 2012 and was there for 10 years. And just moved to Little Rock last year, and I'm very happy to have stayed in the South, and I miss Mississippi dearly. I started the Mississippi Farm to School Network and then joined the national team just last year. It's an honor to get to be in this space with y'all. I loved getting to know Sam, and y'all are lucky to have Sam in Pennsylvania, and it's just great to get to connect with you. I can't wait to hear from some of the other practitioners later in the call. My background in school food is as a lunch lady, basically. After I graduated college, I moved to Boulder, Colorado, where I started working with Chef Ann Cooper, who is the renegade lunch lady. And she was doing cook from scratch meals and salad bars in the Boulder Valley School District, and has since started a national movement around improving school meals by getting more fresh food, scratch food, that sort of thing. It was when I moved to Mississippi that I started doing farm to school. So I started a farm to school program at a small school district in Oxford, Mississippi, and then partnered with some local Mississippians from the Mississippi River Delta to start the Mississippi Farm to School Network. So you'll learn in a second that National Farm to School Network has partners on the ground across the country, and I have always been one since my early work in Mississippi, and it is really awesome to get to be here at the National Network now and to get to offer programs and do things that I would have liked to have seen when I was on the ground. So I am very skilled at operating a commercial dishwasher. They never let me serve food in the cafeterias. That's like you need more skill set for that. But that is my background, and also community organizing now. Next slide. I want to talk a little bit more, if you click it again, the picture. Oh, there we go. I want to talk a little bit more about the National Farm to School Network and what we do, so y'all have some framing for this. We are a network and our mission is to increase access to local food and nutrition education to improve children's health, strengthen family farms, and cultivate vibrant communities. So we have this call to action that we like all of our partners to be helping us lead towards, and that is that 100% of communities will hold power in a racially just food system. And what we mean by that is that people in community across the United States have food sovereignty and the power to shape what food looks like in their schools and in their communities, and where it comes from and how it's grown, so that we're supporting one another while getting little ones like the cute children pictured here eating fresh food that's really good for them, but is also relevant to their culture and community. Our vision, we envision a nation in which farm to school programs are an essential component of strong and just local and regional food systems, ensuring the health of children, the health of farms, the health of the environment, and the health of our economy and communities. So this is just as much economic justice as it is racial justice for us. Next slide. These are our values, which we feel like it is important to share with y'all whenever we do presentations, because we work with people. We work with people on the ground, and we come together at the National Network around these values that we have of economic justice, environmental justice, health impact, racial equity, respecting workers and educators, and animal welfare. It's not that we are shining stars in approaching any of these values, but these are the things that we hold true and guide all of our programmatic policy and work with our partners. Next slide. So just so you know, these are the ways that you can be involved with the National Farm to School Network. So we are a hub for information. We have a vast database of resources available to you. We are a network at our core. So we have ways for you to connect with other people doing farm to school work, because as I learned in my work in Mississippi, the only way that this is going to happen is providing space for people to connect with one another, to connect to the resources that they need in order to learn how farm to school works and how it can be implemented. We also do policy and advocacy on the local, state, and federal level at National Farm to School Network. And this is one of our strong suits. It's a way for us to take what we're hearing on the ground from our partners, from our community, and help turn that into systems change policy. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk to you about one of those successful policies. Drum roll, please. Next slide. And that is the establishment of National Farm to School Month. So this was a policy that we advocated for in 2010, and we celebrated the first National Farm to School Month in 2011. So in general, the goal is to get people excited about farm to school, encourage our partners to be involved with farm to school, and to get the message of what they're doing out into the community. So this is looking different everywhere across the country. The general theme is building awareness and celebration. I know all of you are incredibly hard workers, and it's hard for us to take a pause and take a moment and celebrate our wins. Farm to School Month is an opportunity for y'all to do that. So that can be doing activities with your kids. It can be anything that's like, as huge and intense as a big apple crunch, or something that's statewide and everyone's crunching into an apple at the same time. It can be as small as some social media posts. I'm going to tell you some more examples in a moment, but I just want to clarify, there are no rules on celebrating Farm to School Month. We just want to be increasing awareness of the practice of farm to school and celebrating our wins. Next slide. So our theme for this year is rooted in community, growing stronger together. We know that Farm to School is built for and by communities, and Farm to School brings together very unique communities and very unique individuals across food service and curriculum and parents and student involvement. But really, we're all coming together on this shared common vision of abundant, nourishing food that exists within an equitable food system. So for this October, our activities are going to be focused on celebrating those achievements, sharing stories about collaboration and community, and highlighting National Farm to School Network's progress towards racial equity in farm to school so that we can grow stronger together. So we want to hear from you, as you're celebrating Farm to School Month. Tag us in your pictures and let us know what's going on. Next slide. And we have a couple of ways. Okay, so these are the examples. So once I said it goes from a micro to a macro, it's just a great opportunity to use the month. It's a great opportunity to get your school administrations on board. It's a great opportunity to get your cities on board. Sometimes states and cities will have local government, write their own decrees about Farm to School Month, having them celebrate, inviting your local legislators, your local celebrities to come help you honor the kids and the work that's happening in your schools. There are so many resources out in the world around doing activities with students. I personally love the work that Small Bites Adventure Club out of Georgia has been putting out for October in terms of activities you can do in the classroom. I love, this is my party trick, is challenge me to relate any curriculum to farm to school and school garden work, and I am able to do it. So you can teach any subject in a school garden. But there are also wonderful books you can get just to get a good start. It's a great time to honor your teachers. It's a great time to honor school janitors and groundskeepers. Great time to honor your food service staff and those lunch ladies. And I always loved, and lunch gentlemen and lunch people, I always loved putting them up on a stage and having the kids clap for them and really honor them, because it's they're not doing that job for the money alone, because it's not the highest paid job. So any sort of extra love you can give those folks that really help keep our community alive and fed and growing is good. And yes, I will get you the link for the books. And you can go all out too. You can really use this month to do something like create a community asset map. there's just a gazillion ways to celebrate. And next slide is going to be my opportunity to tell you how we can help. So I don't know if you've noticed these graphics I've had on these slides, but we had an awesome artist that our Gen Z communications intern found on Instagram, who has put together these beautiful posters and stickers and bookmarks that are all available to you for a free download on our website. We have a whole website dedicated to National Farm to School Month, and we'll be sure to get you that link. Thanks, Sam. And I always say, like, if you haven't discovered the magic of stickers, go ahead and discover it. A child will eat just about anything for a sticker, as long as they're about like 4th grade and below. That's the caveat. Although sometimes you never know. You get a cool enough group of high schoolers, they will also go for this. But there are some beautiful stickers, and we hope that you use them all in good health and have a great celebration. Please do tell us what you've got going on by submitting your events to our calendar. And I'm actually seeing Small Bites right there on the left with their rainbow wraps, which I'm doing with my daughter's 1st grade classroom this fall. So next slide. That is it from me. Would love to connect with all of you, hear what you're doing, answer questions, give you an idea, and have you challenge me on that curriculum piece too. Thanks so much for the opportunity and the time. And I would just love to be able to make it up to Pennsylvania at some point in my life. So if anybody has in-person stuff going on and they'd love a visitor, let me know.
Thank you so much, Sunny. We'll definitely be inviting you up here. It'd be great to have you. We're going to move right along, but as I mentioned earlier, feel free to pop any thoughts or questions in the chat. I've been seeing some other resources popped in, which is awesome. I also shared the links that Sunny had on her slides. Some of them, we'll include all of them in our wrap-up email, as well as post them in our wrap-up blog that we'll have on our website. And before I pass it over to my dear friend, Patrick Andrews from the Department of Ag, I'm also going to drop a link to the curated resource that we put together here for Pennsylvania, which has a ton of different resources related to the different core components for Farm to School, as well as some promotional resources and materials that we'll talk about briefly in announcements. So feel free to pull that up and check it out. But now I'll pass it over to Patrick, who's going to share about PA Preferred Days, which also happens in October, and then also help to moderate our panel.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Hey, I just also want to say, give a shout out back to Sunny again for joining us. Because if you don't know, Sunny is actually pretty Farm to School famous. She I think you went to the Madison conference in 2015, right? Which is where I first met you. And I have to say that your great work in Mississippi, right? Farm to School network, that establishing that network and all the work that you've done has been held up many times to me amongst other people as really compelling stuff and stuff that and work that motivated other people to do it, you know, including our state, Pennsylvania. So so glad you're part of the national network team now, and really great that you're joining us and sharing some of your own energy with us here in Pennsylvania. So thanks. So PA Preferred, real quick, for those of you that don't know, and hopefully that's none of you, PA Preferred is your state brand here in Pennsylvania for agricultural products. And when we say agricultural products, what we're talking about is food, fiber, or fuel. So, you know, it could be wood pellets for your stove, or it could be your coffee table that was made from Pennsylvania hardwoods. That could be it could be alpaca wool that, you know, your scarf was made from. But most of the time when we talk about it, we're talking about food, of course. And that includes raw ingredients and processed foods, but any of the processed foods we're talking about have to come from those raw ingredients. So everything PA Preferred relates back to a producer or farmer and the work they're doing to mostly to feed us and sometimes clothe us or keep us warm. But in celebration of PA Preferred, and more prominently in celebration of National Farm to School Month, we created a program a few years ago called PA Preferred Days. And again, I want to give a shout out to Devin Sunderberg, who formerly of the Philadelphia School District, who actually piloted this. It was her idea to take some PA preferred products, either products that were made by or produced by PA preferred members, or were produced by somebody who would qualify for PA preferred. Maybe they haven't joined yet, and feature them on the menu for just one day in the month of October, and for National Farm to School Month. And it's a great way to stick your big toe in the pool of farm to school and procurement. Just try it out for a day, develop some relationships with farmers, and see how it works for you, and then maybe it takes off, right? And you do things like Harvest of the Month. So at any rate, that's PA preferred days. That's what we're doing. And if you want to learn a little bit more, feel free to reach out to me. You can look for PA Preferred Farmers there at papreferred.com/search. Scan that QR code to register. If you're a food service director and you want to do this in your school, we have a couple of days left to register. Registration closes October 1st. So we look forward to any and all interested participants. We have 38 registrants right now. So we are ready to roll on to the next slide, I think. Okay. I want to introduce our panelists to everybody. We got some really great guests. Start off, we have Sarah Alber, I'm not sure, Program Director of Green Trees Early Learning Center, Inc. in Pike County. I think they're a farm to school grantee, a PA farm to school grant. We have my friend Doreen Petrie. She's the Project Director of Erie Farm to School in the Erie City School District. Another friend, Ayanna Jones, the Director and Operator of Sankofa Village Farms in Pittsburgh. And then we have Nicole Taylor, so the Director of Food Nutrition at, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Chichester School District. I hope I got that right. I did. Sam saying yes. Okay. Sam knows.
Yes, you got it right.
All right, good. So a really great set of panelists here. And they're going to tell you a little bit more about what they're doing, and then we're going to have an opportunity for some questions that but we'll start off in the order that they're listed here in the pictures. Panelists, if each of you could come off mute and say take up to 5 minutes to talk about what you're doing, and we'll go from there. Go ahead, Sarah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Alber, and I'm the Program Director at Green Trees Early Learning Center. So we're a small nonprofit organization located in Milford, and we serve children from 6 weeks, actually, so infants, all the way up through toddler, pre-K, and then we have a school-age program as well. So I'm here, and I'm so delighted and thrilled to be here today to help kick off and celebrate Farm to School Month. But I'm here primarily to talk about how our program utilizes school gardens. I do the majority of the grant writing at our center, and a couple of years ago, we had started a project with school gardens. So I'm just going to talk about that for a little bit, so we could go ahead to the next slide. Okay, so for us back in 2019, we had received a grant to be able to begin our school garden project. And this was primarily with our school age, so ages kindergarten through 5th grade. I would suggest for anyone thinking about starting a school garden, or even just having a couple of different planters in your classroom or in a classroom window, really involve the children in your class from the start of the process. It really helps promote that teamwork in the classroom. It helps build self-esteem in children, their delight and thrill of being able to be a part of a bigger project, and to help and just support in that planning process was really important when we started the school garden. So our children helped in terms of planning what fruits and vegetables we were going to plant. They helped build the raised garden beds themselves. So we have a couple pictures up there of just our process with that, and how the process was just as important as the product, which ended up being a lot of tomatoes, a lot of squash. We discovered, through trial and error, which things worked in our school garden and which things needed a little bit more support. But throughout the years, we've really been able to evolve our school garden program and have it literally and figuratively grow into something more. So in 2020, with the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, we did introduce mindfulness in our school gardens in the form of a yoga program for new mothers and their infants, just to help support the bonding that families can have with their children during such a stressful and strenuous time for all families. So we did begin that program. And because it was so widely cherished by our community and we had really great participation and feedback, we actually chose to further evolve that into weekend community workshops that we've been doing for the past couple of years now, mainly in the spring, summer, and fall, where we do yoga in the garden, we do mindfulness, we also do story time and craft time. So I want to echo Sunny when she had said that there's not anything that you can't do involving farm to school and school gardens. And I definitely agree with that. It all connects back together. More recently in 2020, we are evolving our school garden yet again into a new sensory garden program that we're hoping to kick off with Farm to School Month. So you guys can go ahead to the next slide now. Some activities that you can do at your center or at your educational location with children. Taking a field trip is a wonderful idea. We visited local farms with our pre-K class, inviting other programs to come in and visit you if you're unable to go out and take field trips. Just taking your children on a nature walk around the grounds maybe. So our location actually backs up into National Park state land. So we have a variety of different plants and nature and animals and insects that we get to teach the children about. But just taking a nature walk with your class is a great way to celebrate Farm to School. Next slide. So what other activities maybe can you do? And I want to go back to also echo something that was said earlier, that when you celebrate Farm to School Month, it doesn't have to be a really elaborate, I'm going to create a whole new school garden program. You can do Farm to School in everyday activities with your children. You can incorporate it into your classroom as a theme by maybe creating a sensory bin. So in the picture on the right-hand side, we have one of our pre-K children, and the teachers had made a sensory themed garden bin for the classroom, and she had left that out in the classroom as their main sensory activity for the whole month. You can also incorporate things like art and nature. So on the left-hand side, we had taken a nature walk, and after we were teaching the children about found materials that they discovered during the nature walk, they then used those found materials and created a collage nature project out of that. And then the middle picture shows just, again, a couple different examples about how you can choose to do a week celebration, sending some resources home to your families to just continue that home to school to child connection and creating that kind of circle. I really think that involving the families is just a great idea to be able to incorporate them into the celebration as well. But it really just does start with a little thought bubble. So our first school garden was, a little thought, and it just expanded and grew over the years. And because there's so much creativity and so much that you can do with Farm to School and school gardens, there's really endless ways of being able to celebrate this month. Next slide. So I know we only had a couple minutes to be able to chat about some of these different resources, but if anyone needs any additional support or ideas, maybe if you're thinking about incorporating a school garden into your program and maybe you want to just brainstorm and shoot some ideas back and forth, you can contact me. My email address is in this slide, but I'll drop it in the chat as well. I'm more than happy to help support anyone and any program in their journey to adding school gardens and doing a gardening program. And I'm also a PA Keys PQAS instructor, and I'm going to be offering a course that looks a little bit more deeply into how school gardens help that social emotional growth and development in children and families. So you can keep an eye out on the PA Keys calendar for that to be offered soon. But thank you guys so much again. I really appreciate everyone coming out today and our other panelists and everyone on this call. It's a really great opportunity to network, and I hope to hear from everyone soon.
All right. Thank you so much, Sarah. Hey, and real quick before we move on, I just wanted to mention to folks, and maybe you already knew this, but I'll just say it out loud anyway. If you have questions that you're hanging on to that you don't want to forget, feel free to just throw them into the chat, and I can read them off there, or I can just pick out folks when they hit the raise your hand icon after the panelists have gone. But I just wanted to make sure everybody had that in their mind. But moving on to our next fabulous panelist, Doreen Petrie. Feel free to unmute and come tell us about your programming.
Thank you, Patrick, and thank you for having me. So I am the project director of Erie Farm to School within the Erie School District, which primarily consists of 14 school gardens. We like to relate ourselves to the acronym BELONG, which stands for Becoming Empowered by Living Our Natural Gifts. Next slide, please. We have 10 elementary schools, and our educational programming primarily consists of a spring session, which is 6 weeks long, and the students will begin to prepare the beds to be planted, plant all the plants and seeds and nurture them. And then in the fall, we harvest and put the beds to get the beds ready to go for winter time. We do have some summer programming. We also have families come in during the summertime in our elementary schools. What we specifically do in the month of October is we carve pumpkins, first of all, for the Penn State Master Gardener Pumpkin Walk in Erie. And the first year we did that, we really did not realize how many students had never had a carved pumpkin at their house. So after that, we carve pumpkins the first week of October for the pumpkin walk, and the last week of October again for them to take pumpkins home. Next slide, please. At our middle school level, as it says there, we have 3 middle schools. We first of all tried to start out by having a year-long program, and these are all after-school programs. But our clubs were more successful at the middle school by having 4 4-week sessions with different themes. So obviously we have fall gardening and at the beginning of the school year. We have a culinary program where we bring in local experts. For example, one of our local bakers made lavender cookies with the kids. We have one of our teachers that makes homemade pasta and pesto with basil from our gardens. In session 3, we have a great farmer. She's on the very left-hand side, Lisa Dvorak. She has a business growing microgreens. So she talks about the business side of it to our middle schoolers and also shares some of her microgreens. And we have light carts and we start to grow things inside in the wintertime. And then in the springtime, of course, we start to plant the gardens again. We do have a greenhouse at one of our middle schools, as you can see in the photograph. And this past year, our students designed and painted benches for their particular garden, their kind of tranquility seating area. Next slide, please. We take the kids on a lot of field trips. This is a middle school group of students that went to Wildfield Urban Farm. We had a competition for them to create their own salad dressing, and they were in groups, so they each had to taste it and add different things. There was a lot of discussion about mustard and mayonnaise and those types of ingredients. And then we had, of course, judges decide which was the most flavorful salad dressing. We picked things from the garden and we had a delicious salad for lunch. Another thing we do with the middle schoolers is we offer home gardens. So after they have gone through some of our elementary programming and then are in the middle school, they're ready to take the leadership role of putting a garden in at home. So we've done this for a couple of years. We hope to continue it each year, where families finally can grow their own food. One of the moms this year even said to me, we cannot afford to buy all the ingredients that we want to prepare healthy foods, and now we can grow them. Next slide, please. We have 2 high schools in the Erie School District. Collegiate Academy is where I started the very first school garden, and that's the set of top pictures. They've done a lot of walking trips and field trips, and they really concentrate on environmental justice and looking at different careers related to gardens and agriculture. They had to put in a new garden this past year because the previous one, which as I said was our first one, was destroyed by a construction project. The bottom 3 pictures, Erie High is our second high school, and they have a career in tech section, and landscape management is one of those cohorts. They actually come and help us all the time to help set up and do a lot of hard work in our school gardens. Next slide, please. So finally, as I said, we do have 14 school gardens. We have many types of educational programming. We had a workshop for our art teachers, art in the garden this past year, and now they are doing some of those activities in their schools. In March of 2020, we closed all the schools. No students would be allowed in the schools. So all of our adults could only access and nurture the gardens. And we had the opportunity to weigh everything. So we donated over 1,500 pounds of food to our families and local entities. We are mostly grant funded, and we have lots of volunteer participation. We have lots of friends and neighbors, and some of our community partners, for example, the Penn State Master Gardeners, they do most of the teaching in our elementary garden clubs. Groundwork Erie helps employ some of our students to work in the gardens and to help restore blighted properties. Edinboro Market helps to connect us with local growers. And you see a couple of farms there that I mentioned earlier. Mercyhurst University, just this past year, we made a strong connection with them and with their culinary program. They hosted us. The students got to work at some of the stations. They came and cooked with our middle school garden club. And we have many, many other volunteers that help us care for the gardens and teach and help to act as mentors and role models for our students. So I thank you for this opportunity. Again, my name is Doreen Petrie. That is my email address. And Stephanie Seiner is my partner. She has all the skills that I do not have. And we work together to continue this initiative. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, Doreen. You got a lot of really cool stuff going on up there. You're a busy person. Okay, let's move on to our next panelist, a good friend of mine, Ayanna Jones, the illustrious Ayanna. Please unmute yourself and tell us all about the incredible work you're doing at Sankofa Village Farms in Pittsburgh.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for the very kind words. You know I'm a headache, but it's okay. I do good work. My name is Ayanna Jones. I'm 75 years old, 5 sons, 32 grandchildren, and some of them you'll see in the picture that's in front of you. If you want to see me, you have to come to the farm because that's where I am most of the time. I started this farm in 2015 with about 50 people, and we ended up with 2 because people like to talk about having a community garden, talk about having a farm, but the work that you have to put in is a lot. It's a lot. The young lady in the middle, that's the other Ayanna. She's always in the garden. These are my learn and earn students on, I guess that would be your right or left. It's a bunch of them. We're picking greens for the farmers market. In the back, you'll also see a bunch of bikes. We have a program called Word is Born. And for the children who couldn't access bikes through the bike trails, and not the trails, but through the bike stations here in Pittsburgh, we were finding that they put a lot of them in the Black community and the kids were tearing them up. So we tracked some of the kids down, find out why. And because in our community, we don't just give our children credit cards to ride a bike for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. So our children saw these bikes being available, but not to them. So we started a program called Word is Bond, and you make collateral by coming up on the farm and doing some work, whatever we need done. And you can flip that into hours on the bike. Word is Bond comes in where you bring the bike back when you say you're going to bring it back. As of now, we only had one bike not returned, and I went to his grandmother and he returned it quickly, and we never had that problem again. We've given away 4 bikes, 3 to men, 1 to a woman. They wanted jobs, had no means of transportation, so we donated them a bike, and now they have jobs, and they come by often. If we're having lunch, they'll stop and eat, and sometimes they just leave us a donation when they're paid. Just to give you a little background about who we are, and that's the perfect picture to come up. We started out with 5-year-olds, and I love them. I love those guys. They absorb everything. They're like sponges. But the interest for the parents didn't hold as well with the little ones. So with my Learn and Earn students, I decided that would be where our focus is. And what we do is we take students from 14 to 20, and we teach them to grow food. Our mission is to eradicate food apartheid in the Black community. And we grow to teach, not to sell. We give away a lot of food, a lot. We give away a lot of green tomatoes. We are culturally responsible in our farm. We give away green tomatoes because people in our community eat fried green tomatoes, and it's very hard for them to get them anywhere else. So we're kind of like the little angels of that community that people come by all the time and want green tomatoes, collard greens, okra. We grow a lot of okra. We have a group of Africans who have a restaurant. They come by and they get the okra that we grow. But for Black people, and you'll notice that is my focus. My focus is healing my own community and bringing anyone else in that wants to be a part of it. We grow not as a trend, but during 1910 to 1970, with the migration from the South to the North, Black people, we brought our gardening skills with us. So you could always see a garden or 2 or 3 in your community. And quite often, my grandparents were gardeners. I mean, we lived in the middle of the city. We had a mule and 4 chickens. We just couldn't have a rooster. But we always gardened from the time I was 6 years old. I remember us having a garden. Well, now that it's trendy, and you have to have qualifications, and what are your why do you qualify? I went back to school and took horticulture over at Bidwell. And thank you. And I decided that since we hadn't had a grocery store in our community for 40 years, my question is, what is it? Black people don't eat? Then when I did my research, I found out that just before the food expires, they were sending it to our community in other stores that were in Black communities. So we decided to grow our own food. And as Huey Newton says, I'm still an active Black Panther. And as Huey Newton said, our kids can't learn if their stomachs are growling. So we started feeding them in a free breakfast program. It was started by us. The big young man you see there is my oldest son. That's Raheem. He's 52. That's his new baby. He's part of the, he's always been part of the garden. My neighbors used to be very upset that I would let him sit in the, as they call it, the dirt, but to us, it's soil and compost, and eat the soil. You can see it didn't do him any harm. He's now a professional paintballer. So, gardening in my family runs in our blood. We're originally from Nymph, Alabama, and that's nothing but farmland. And all of my relatives have a garden. And so for me to have a garden in the middle of the hood, and we are in the middle of the hood, they think I've done something special when in fact it's happening all over the country. And I'm extremely happy about that. We have, our goal is to eradicate food apartheid in the Black communities, because we do not call our communities food deserts. A desert is a natural occurrence, but food apartheid is what we decided as Black farmers, because it is a conscious effort to deny people food based upon the color of their skin. And when you can dehumanize them as human beings, why feed them? So you will find that the cry about retail grocery stores and the Black community is universal. It's not just in Pittsburgh, it's everywhere. One of the main things I have to do as soon as my young people come up on the property is dispel the myth of enslavement and tilling the soil. And our children have it bad, because in their schools, they started slavery, they stay at slavery, and from the school to prison pipeline, they show our children quite often that that's their future. So we make a conscious effort to teach our children from the perspective of Black empowerment. And what we do is we teach from a book called Farming While Black with Leah Penman, who is one of the premier farmers in my book. I follow mostly everything that she says. She's the guru to me of Black farmers, Black urban farmers. We also have a motto that if you allow a man to feed you, you will allow him to starve you. And so it's very important that we understand through food justice the true Black experience and contribute to society and the world. We do a lot of Black trivia, like are there more Black men in jail or in college? Well, in fact, it's college. And we have 7 million Black men in college. We only have less than 1 million in jail. But every group that comes on our site always picks jail. And it's not because of the community environment, it's because of the media and social media that we don't understand our contribution to society. So that's part of something that we have to teach. And we do teach that on our property. We do a lot of work around George Washington Carver. I go to Cuba a lot. I'll be going to Cuba next month. But we do biochar to do soil amendment. Well, people just came along and thought that biochar was just invented last month. No, George Washington Carver instituted and developed and studied and researched the use of biochar, along with many of the skills that are still used for erosion were developed by George Washington Carver. Once I teach my young people that the phone was invented by a Black man, the whole day seems different and bright to them, because now they understand that the contribution to the community is important, it's effective, it's engaging. We also have a garden that's called Keelan's Place. And it's a garden specifically designed for young children with autism. And how I know this is that I have a grandson and he has autism. Out of my 32 grandchildren, there's about 3 of our children who are autistic. And I wanted to know why this was happening. Because when I did my research, I found out that 20 years ago, the Black community only had 5% autism. Now we have 35% autism. So it is my responsibility as a community activist to make sure that the target population is served. So we had Bloomsburg University here in Pennsylvania come in, and we started developing a sensory garden specifically designed for autistic children. And we throw in thing or two for mainstream children. But we don't allow parents in there. Parents can't go in there. You can see, Patrick knows, you can see the whole circumference of that garden, but we ask the parents to stay on the outside. You know, in our situation, a lot of times the parents are at a hindrance. Oh, their shoes are going to get dirty. Oh my, they're touching a worm. Oh, look at, there's dirt under their fingernails. They'll be fine. You know, so we also do the presenter in front of me talked about how they make salad dressing and they have a contest. Well, we made salad dressing, but we never had a contest. So I'm going to steal Aries' idea, and we're going to have a salad dressing contest. And I think that, especially with my young people, as you can see from some of the previous slides, I have the older ones, and it's hard to convince them that growing your own food is important. But once we do, every one of them has a garden in their home.
So let's move on to my dear friend, Nicole Taylor from Chichester School District, who I had the opportunity to work with and get to know a little bit more last year through her involvement with the Farm to School Institute that we were able to put on. But I'm excited for her to share a little bit about what she's got going on at her schools. So go ahead, Nicole.
Well, hello, everyone. As Sam stated, I'm Nicole Taylor. First of all, I'm a little intimidated. I'm going last. There's been some really amazing work around Pennsylvania. So kudos to each of you all for all the hard work that you all are doing in Farm to School. And now I really feel like my program is so tiny. I'm like, oh, I don't know if we're doing that much, but I will give it a shot here. So I'm at Chichester School District. I'm a 100% CEP district. And two of my schools actually sit in an area where I hate to say food desert, Ayana, I'm sorry, but they sit in an area where we don't have access to, I should say food insecurity. So we don't really have access to a grocery store. And I have always been a promoter of fresh fruits and vegetables. And so really working with PDE and PDA, and I will just go a little off track here and just say, if you don't have those connections, I strongly advise everyone to really utilize your state agencies and really build those connections, because it was through Audrey Hess that I actually found out about the Farm to School Network and programs and grants that they have, that they offer. And so, sort of like Ayana, I grew up in New Mexico and Texas and Colorado. And while growing up in New Mexico, my grandmother had this huge garden, and that was actually my playground. That's where I played. They were farmers, and I would go out there and I would play all day, and I would eat the vegetables that that they were growing. And so I really developed this love for fruit and vegetables. And I realized as I moved into my career path that a lot of the students that I interact with don't like fruits and vegetables. So I had to try to figure out, how do I make it appealing? The grant from Farm to School Network came out, and I was one of the recipients. And so we were able to get 2 terraponic gardens, two sites. So we have a total of 4, and they're terraponic gardens, and they're located directly inside the cafeteria. I think there's another slide. I'm not sure. Next slide, please. I think. Thank you. And so we are able to set them up directly in the cafeteria. So when the students come into the cafeteria, they see their work, they see them growing. And so what we did the first time was we had it set up so that we brought down our 4th graders. We selected 4th graders because we wanted them to be our ambassadors to the program. And so they came down, they helped us to plant and kind of keep the garden tamed. They look at it, they notice that it's growing. They talk to their little friends to tell them, hey, don't touch it. We want it to grow. So they're really our champions for our garden. Next slide, please. And then when it is time to harvest, oh, I didn't put that picture in there. I'm sorry. So when it's time to harvest, one of the things that I do is I walk into to each of the schools and I ask them if there is a child that's having a bad day, can they come down with me and help me harvest the garden? And so I'll usually get about 2 or 3 students, and we'll come down and we'll harvest our lettuce, our tomatoes, and our herbs. We will grow. We ask the students at the end of the year, kind of as we're talking to them, what would you like to see grow? We've tried strawberries, watermelons, onions, garlic, pumpkins, and our newest try is sunflowers. So I'll keep you guys updated to see if that grows and how that works. But we just like to try to give our students a different variety. And then we talk about maybe why it didn't grow so well. Is it not the right environment? Was it too much light? What can we do different? So through this program, we really are able to work with our students. And then our last thing that we're doing right now is we're working with the SNAP Ed program. We recently received an additional grant, and we are kicking off for school nutrition for Farm to School Month. We actually have another garden center going into our elementary school in Marcus Hook. It's a little bit smaller, so shout out to Fork Farms, because we're actually able to find a garden station that we could actually utilize and get classroom curriculum and build from there. So we're really excited to be able to start that program with our students there. So that's it for me. Thank you all so much for having me on your panel. I really enjoy listening to all the wonderful panelists.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Yes, like folks have been saying in the chat, and for anything and everything that is happening farm to school related, and so many great examples shared by all of you about addressing real health and systemic problems that kids and communities are facing in your neighborhood is really inspiring. And the collaboration component, like Sunny was talking about, it's just so integral and important to building more of a sustained movement for farm to school. So with that, there is so much great stuff in there. Would love to make some time to see if anybody has any questions specifically for our panelists, and also know that all of our panelists are able and willing to stay in for the small groups. So when we break into small groups, you'll likely have a chance to pick their brains and also learn from other people. So I'll just see if anyone does have any questions. If you want to either raise your hand or come off mute or pop it in the chat. And you know, if we don't have any major burning questions, we can always move into small group discussions where people can get to know folks a little bit better too. So wait, just be patient for 1 second. Let's see. Are people feeling like excited to get to talk in a smaller setting? Should we just move right along? Thumbs up if people agree, head nods. Okay. Okay, cool. Well, seeing that there's not any immediate questions, we'll move right in to give some brief announcements, just a couple minutes, and then we'll move into our small group sessions. So this slide shows all the various ways that you can continue getting more involved like you are today, just by showing up to this open house. I highly recommend subscribing to our monthly newsletter, which goes out the first week of each month, if you're not already subscribed. And then there's a ton of different ways to also get more involved. If you've already felt like you've indicated you want to get more involved and haven't necessarily been able to move up in the engagement ladder, feel free to reach out to me directly. My email is right there on the slide, but definitely look out in the coming months for more opportunities as we continue to grow out the resources and involvement chances for people to do more with the network specifically. Now I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Jamie, who's going to share a little bit about some specific things coming up and also resources directly related to National Farm to School Month.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about a few upcoming opportunities. So of course, Farm to School Month is this October, and also PA Prefer Days if you choose to celebrate in that way. But you can find some resources and promotional materials, including social media images and flyers for your celebrations using the links I'll put in the chat here. The PFSN has also been collecting stories from folks doing farm to school activities. A lot of people who've submitted stories are here today. And we'll be sharing these stories in our newsletter, on social media, and on a brand new stories webpage that we're creating. And that'll be up in October as well. So be on the lookout for a bunch of these stories. And if you would like to share a story with us, I'm sure a lot of you have really successful farm to school programs or stories to share. We'd love to hear from you. And so you can submit that via the link in the chat as well that I'll put here at the end. Next slide, Lauren. I'm going to pass it to Elaine for a second to talk about the next opportunity.
Thanks, Jamie. So coming up next month, we hope that you will have be able to join us for some farm to child nutrition regional gatherings that we have planned. We have 2 half-day sessions planned. One is at the Allegheny IU in Homestead, PA in the Pittsburgh area. The other is October 24th at the Farm Show Complex in Harrisburg. Again, these are half-day morning sessions. Registration is free. If you come, you'll hear more about Pennsylvania Harvest of the Month, about funding farm-to-child nutrition initiatives. We will have a presentation about engaging students in farm-to-child nutrition activities, as well as how to get more involved in the Pennsylvania Farm-to-School Network. So I think Audrey is going to put the registration link in the chat if you're interested in registering for one of those sessions. There's still space available at each session, but I'll just mention that the registration deadlines are approaching, especially for the session in Pittsburgh. The registration deadline is next Wednesday. So if you're interested, please register and join us in October. Thank you.
Thanks, Elaine. Oh, Lauren, back one more slide for a second. And then we also have the USDA Food and Nutrition Service will release the 4th Farm to School Census in October. And the census is the only national survey that examines the extent of farm to school activities in school across the country. And it surveys all school food authorities in public and private schools that are operating the National School Lunch Program. So right now the link is not up yet, but you can view the 2019 Farm to School Census results, and I'll put that link in the chat. And another link that you can stay up to date. And we'll also be sharing more of this information about the census in our upcoming newsletter. And then lastly, our next open house is on December 7th, and we'll be talking about local food purchasing incentives. So be sure to save that date in your calendar.
Great. Thanks, Jamie. Okay, so we're about to wrap up our big group section for now and jump into small groups. So my last key tip for people to take away is in October, celebrate all that you do that is farm to school and farm to early care and education related. It can really have a ripple effect to not only can inspire and compel more people to do this work, but also get a lot more support from your own local community so that you can sustain your activities. The more people know about what you do, the more support you'll have, the more funding potentially you can get, the more promotion you'll get for the work you're doing. So it really just is a great month to take advantage of that. And like Jamie said, there's lots of different ways for you to share your own story, and we are happy to help you with that by packaging it up all nice, and even sharing that with certain people in your community as well. So the resources are a great place to look for specific links, but with that, I want to just jump into small groups because I know we don't have a ton more time left. We will come back to the big group for about 5 minutes. So we're going to have like 12 or 15 minutes in these small groups. I think they will be pretty small. Hopefully everybody can stick around. If for some reason you have to hop off, thank you for joining us, but we'll meet everybody else back in the big group right before we wrap up for any unanswered questions from small group sessions. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into small groups. Hello, hello. Welcome back. All right, I think we're waiting for some more folks to hop back from their small groups, but we want to save some time to see if there were any questions that came up in small groups that people wanted to ask this larger group of people. Or if you just want to share some highlights from meeting new folks or thoughts that you have for National Farm to School Month based on all the content you saw during this open house. So I'm going to open it up to the group. And as you can see on the screen here, we'd love to get your feedback on this open house. We're planning to continue doing them quarterly over the next, year or so, as long as people enjoy them. But we also are looking for ways to improve them and continue making it as useful as possible for you all and additional folks who hopefully will join in the future. So please go ahead and take that. And I will send out an email after this with as many of the resources as possible. So many great links were dropped in the chat. And as I mentioned earlier, we will put this recording up on our website in a blog post too. So all the information will be there. So with that, does anyone have any questions or highlights that they want to share from their small group? You can pop them in the chat or just come off mute and go ahead and share.
Sam, we had a request from someone who would like to connect with Ayana. I don't know if she's still with us, if she would.
Yeah, I am. I'm here.
It's okay if we share your email address
Oh,
with
please, and my phone number. I'm old school. I'm 75, you guys. I still answer the phone.
Well, I'm not sure I have your phone number, but I think I have your email address.
Okay, I did put it in the chat. my
Oh,
phone
okay,
number.
great. Thank you.
And thank you all. This was very enlightening.
Yeah, thank you, Ayana. If you wouldn't mind throwing your phone number in the chat one more time for us, for whoever is looking to
Okay.
connect with you, that would be great.
You know, I'm still learning to work this, okay?
Oh yeah, take your time, and I can help do
Okay.
it as well. I know I have your number, so I can include that and everyone's
Yeah, will
contact
you?
info if folks are. Yep, no problem. What else? Any other questions, requests, highlights? Had some great comments in the chat. Thank you. I see you all who are posting.
Okay.
Yeah, Cheryl?
I was with Ayana and Nicole, and I was truly blessed. It's
Oh,
I sincerely was. I'm so glad that they're doing what they're doing, because it's making an impact. I know the impact I'm making on these little ones, just under 5, okay, and getting them involved. That it's a mission.
mhm.
And literally it's almost like a ministry that you're doing, but you're giving the kids, what I like about it is that you're giving the kids something that nobody could take away from them, and that's that knowledge and power to do so. And it may be 20 years from now before the ones that I reach decide, oh, when I was in daycare we had a garden, and I'd like to try to do something like that too. I remember doing this or that. And I'm early childhood, but they're the next levels of the education to continually to develop a lifelong healthy eater. And I was just impressed with them. So thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Cheryl. Yeah, and
Thank you,
to-
Cheryl.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Cheryl.
So much love. It's amazing. Yeah, there's like so many awesome examples. I had a comment from Sunny who was like, wow, you got some amazing people here. I was like, no, like Pennsylvania has amazing work going on and people who are leading the charge, and there's so much good community support out there. So yeah, thank you all for taking the time to show up here today to this open house. Now go back out and spread the good word in your own communities, because that's really how we're going to be able to build more sustained power and support for this type of work that's so needed. So any other highlights, last words people want to share before we wrap up?
Bye. I have to go
All
to a
right.
meeting.
No problem.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks, Ayana, for joining. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Oh, the pleasure's mine.
Thanks to everybody who helped facilitate small groups and prepare. It's been awesome having you.